Hi, and welcome to the Caribbean Metabolic Classroom, specifically targeting the folks of the Caribbean like myself, and to get a little bit more acquainted with the knowledge and the information that's supposed to have been given to us as children so that we prevent or at least avoid the risks that are associated with certain compounds that we are putting in our mouth. Yes, we call it food. My name is Moses, and welcome to today's show. As you could see, I'm very tired because I've been stimulating, and in all my discussion, I would always speak about the TRIO protocol. You could buy a copy of this TRIO protocol for your own information. It is only $6 US, and link is available in the description of this post recording, I guess, and so on the website, which is linked in the description below. Thank you for joining me here today, and I hope that you are having a wonderful day. And most of all, remember the TRIO protocol says everything that we are doing is stimulating. It does not matter what you are doing, whether you are arguing, fighting, having a good time. You are either stimulating for the cells to become more enhanced, or you're stimulating for the cells to say to themselves, I need to get out of here and let somebody else come and take over that job. So that's the two things that happens with the cell from a very conceptual point of view with the TRIOS protocol. And once you have completed your stimulation activity, then you go to a state where the body takes over and says, I am now going to repair or restore the human and or the cell. And that is where these cells, the liver, and everybody gets into a bind, or they get bounded into some lockup session. They ask for what is important at that point of time in time to heal, and that which is important is in the true protocol is the nutrition, which is another three nutrition amino acids, essential amino acids. So we speak about the sources of essential amino acids, we speak about the sources of fatty acids, and the sources of vitamins and minerals. And this is where we have been given all the misinformation. So when we study the TRIO protocol, we get to normalize and bring things into its most simplistic format, or one of the most simplistic format, which is, hey, when you eat meat that is from the ruminant animals, cow, goat, lamb, deer, whatever the ruminant animals that you have available, eggs, poultry. When you eat good meats like those, what happens to your fish again? What happens to you? You are supplying essential amino acids, and at the same time, you are supplying fatty acids of many sorts, including the essential one. That's why it's so important to have your sea animals and your land animals, ruminant types. So you will be supplying the nutrients that the body needs. Now, the problem with what we have been doing over the last few years, for those who have been eating a balanced diet, you have been eating a balanced diet, which means you're basically been told to eat good sources of amino acids and fatty acids, but yet fall to tie it up with and bundle it with a lot of fructose, a lot of glucose, which actually is not the best in terms of helping the digestive process of meats and fish and eggs, proper sources of amino acids and fatty acids. We tie them up with our rice and our provision and our starches, because it's one big plate. You know how that nice plate is full of carbohydrates. The carbohydrates do not want to stay in the stomach, and so they pull and they take away the acidity levels by pulling into the duodenum as fast as they could. And so the whole structure of digestion in the stomach itself, where it should be very acidic, to actually turn on the pepsin and the intrinsic factor to cut up and actually extract the nutrients, is not happening as it should. And these are very critical things that we need to understand, that we need to eat our protein. And in my case, being Moses, I would of course put in Exodus chapter, I think 16 verse 11 here, which speaks clearly that our protein and our fatty acid, which is our meat-based substances, should be eaten as by themselves, specifically in the afternoon time. That would give us, the 2 3 hours of full digestion, so that we maximize the acidic digestion process in the stomach, breaking down all these meats and fish and eggs into its polypeptides and then into eventually into amino acids. And so when it releases in the stomach, all the amino acids now get released into the free molecules of amino acids themselves and get into your portal vein up to the liver for the liver and the entire body to do a wonderful thing. Now, the Trio protocol says this is the general pattern of the day. You in the morning you would be active, so you may have glucose if you want, meaning glucose substances, and glucose substances are much better than fructose-based substances. Glucose substances would include, of course, your bread, your rice, your starchy vegetables. You need them because they will be providing some glucose for you if you believe in that source of glucose or that source of gas or that source of energy being from the glucose pathway from your mouth. Yes, but some persons are very good at using things like fats, cocoa tea, eggs in the morning, and they still would be burning fats. But regardless of that, in the afternoon, you want to be cautious about consuming any amount heavy load of glucose if you are still eating glucose on a high consumption level. In the evening, you want to chop that out. Cut out the bread, Caribbean people, cut out the rice and the provision in the afternoon. Let the body digest the meats and the eggs and bring them into the state of amino acids when the digestion process reaches small intestine and the pancreatic juices, the biles, and those things wet those. It's doing a job that would extract as much amino acids out of the food sources, eggs, meat, and stuff like that to give you amino acids, fatty acids in the body at night when you go into your deepest state of rest for recovery and restoration. Now, in your everyday cycle, within an hour, you are also stimulating. Let's say you are walking in the garden. In the first 45 minutes, you stimulated yourself with excessive work. After that, you take a little break. We call it a rest. During that time, you don't want to say to yourself, okay, blah, blah, blah. I will just drink some water and go ahead. Okay, drink your water, go ahead. But you walk for 2 hours very tirelessly like that. After this, you may take your car and go home. You should also now put some amino acids and fatty acids in your body. Now, that is where I would say it's very difficult to get amino acids and fatty acids in your body by going and cook and have a big meal. So that's where you may want to look into things like the supplements, again listed below, to give you a little bump of fatty acids and amino acids during this cycle of the day. However, if you would have prepared your meal properly, and when you reach home, you would not be hungry in the first case because if you are in a proper state, you would have burn out or consume all your glucose, and then you would be in fat burning mode. You don't get hungry. Anybody who's working in the garden or doing those laborious work, you don't get hungry for 12 o'clock. That's just joke. You eat around 2, 3 o'clock because by that time the body is saying, I need. But you want to eat in time to ensure that you have enough gastric acid and time duration for the meats and the eggs to stay in the gastric acid for 2 3 hours so that they really get digested. What you do not want to do is put any carbohydrate substance in your stomach with your meats and your eggs when you are doing this in the evening. You want to stay away from drugs. Now, that is the Trios protocol. You could buy a copy to get more details. I would consistently be talking about this. So for the first 10 minutes, I will be speaking about the Trios protocol today. Now, for the second set of session today, we are speaking about that which is important, and that would be fructose. We need to speak about fructose here, folks. When you look at what we have been told, there are two words, glucose and fructose. Galactose is the one from milk, but glucose and fructose has been well studied. Glucose is not too much a challenge for the body if we are conscious. Okay, it is going to become a challenge for the body if we are unconscious, meaning you are consuming a lot of glucose or glucose sources. That is what we call carbohydrates, or in my world, I say the plant sources. Anything that came from a plant is a source of glucose. That's a high source of glucose. Now, you would say vegetables, blah, blah, blah. Everything from a plant has glucose in it. It may not have the fructose molecule, but it would have glucose. That's what a plant is doing. Whether it's green leafy vegetable or up the road to the fruit, it has glucose. The difference is when you have the sweet tasting vegetables, fruits, or whatever, they have something more than glucose. They have another molecule called the fructose. So sugar cane, when you suck a sugar cane, you don't suck it because it's a sugar cane, you suck it because it's really sweet and nice. It has fructose. When you drink A matured coconut water, it has fructose, but a young coconut water, you don't get the taste. It is more on the glucose side. Also, it is more on the side with the minerals preserved there. So you have to know by now, it's very simple to understand the sweet sugar and the sugar that is not so sweet. So in a vegetable, something like beets or carrots, they may have some fructose because they're kind of sweetish, but they are not something that you could go and say, oh, give me a carrot. No, you would say, give me a mango juice, grape juice, or this juice. These are addictive because they contain the fructose molecule. Now, we have not been well trained about the fructose molecule, so what we have been doing is consuming a lot of fructose from our brown table sugar, which comes from the sugar cane. We call it brown sugar in the Caribbean, where we now have different name for a table sugar, brown sugar. That is called sucrose because they wanted to confuse us. We don't need to be confused. All that we need to know is a combination of fructose and a combination of glucose. That's the two main molecules that makes up the brown sugar. That's why it's sweet. Fructose again. So we have been consuming a lot of fructose throughout our life in the Caribbean for the last 50 years. I am only 45, so I could say for the 45 years. Everybody, because what we do, we make juice, we put brown sugar or white sugar. We make our tea, we put brown sugar or white sugar. So we will be consistently having fructose throughout the entire day in the Caribbean. Then the introduction of higher fructose molecules, higher amount of fructose molecules came through things like the Coca-Colas, the sodas, and other high fructose corn syrup products like our cereals, which we started to eat in the Caribbean also. Not so much like the Kellogg's, but there are some that are sweeter. The children love the sweeter one, high fructose. They are high in fructose molecule. And the fructose gets very much digested already once you put it in your nice warm milk. So basically, we'll be drinking liquid fructose that just like liquid glucose. You know, if you're going to run a race and they give you glucose, you feel energetic. The same thing with fructose. Once you put fructose in water or in a liquid, it then rushes through from the small intestine when it reaches there, and it does not take long, folks, to move from your mouth to the small intestine because it's a liquid molecule that is more than likely already available, bioavailable. So fructose leaves the stuff and rushes through the small intestine up into your portal vein, up into your liver. Fructose. Same thing happens for glucose. Now, we have often heard that it is very great or very good to consume fibrous fruits, yes, because they give us the fiber which goes down to make things like acetate, propionate, and butyrate, which is good for the colonic health. But you could get that from butter. So 50% of one and 5% of the other, whatever that's supposed to mean. So eat butter instead or something like that might be better for you. However, fiber is great, and what fruits do, or what the bacteria would have done when they made the contract with fruits, they would have asked you to consume the fruit so that they get the fiber, but they get the fructose also. So when you look at fructose, fructose is not for your liver. Fructose is not targeting your liver. Fructose is targeting your colon, and it is not for you like the physical person. What is for you goes to the liver. What is not for you stays into the colon for the gut bacteria in the colon. And so fructose being in the fruits with the fiber stays in the fruits. It goes down into the colon, and when it gets there, that the molecule, the little bacteria fight to get to the fructose because it's sweet tasting, and so they mine the fiber and that's how they make the butyrate and acetate. That's what they are actually doing. So they don't really like fiber, as you know, we are taught to think fiber so great and important. They want the fructose, yeah, and glucose, so they go for the fiber and they go and mine it out, and that's how they get a reward. Now, what we have to start paying attention to right now is the fact that one, we are trying to target the colon when we are eating fruits. And so if you're targeting the colon when you're eating fruits, then think. You can't eat fruits on a full stomach and think you're targeting the colon because the whole train of things in your stomach would hold you up. So you want to eat fruits on an empty stomach, and that has been the way you have been taught. We have been taught that over and over. Do not liquefy your fruits and make it into juice and then say, oh, well, I'm going to juice my fruits. Why? Why? You are just making fructose molecule hit the first feet of the small intestine and rush to the hepatic portal vein up to the liver. Leave your fruits in its format. Eat it if you want on an empty stomach is the best way. Now, fructose itself is one molecule. So it doesn't matter if it is fruits or it doesn't matter if it is coke. It doesn't matter if it is sucrose table sugar. Fructose is one molecule, and the fact of the matter is how much could the liver handle? Just because fructose alcohol is the same thing in the liver. How much could your liver handle? And that's where the problem has been coming and surfacing and hitting us very, very bad. The liver cannot handle a lot of those, and not just that the liver cannot handle it, the liver needs time. And the issue here, what we have seen, is that when you consume fructose, larger quantities of fructose, and the liver has to deal with it, the liver actually cannot deal with maybe glucose at the same time. This is only a theory. It seems like the liver only could deal with the fructose at that time. So the liver like pauses to deal with fructose because fructose only could be handled by the liver. So the liver cannot say, well, let me take 2 molecules of fructose and send 3 molecules of fructose for the muscles. No, that is what the liver does with glucose. The liver say, hey, glucose is coming. Let me take some glucose and hold it here because, when this glucose molecule runs out of the blood, I could always bring back into the blood from what I'm taking. So the liver takes 10%. That is what we call give ye all the tithes so that they shall be meat in my house. That is actually the glucose story. The liver takes 10%. Science will tell you the liver takes up to 20% of glucose that is moving from the small intestine through the hepatic portal and up to the liver would take its share, which is 10% according to scriptures, but science is in 20%. And they take its share and store it in the stores as glycogen, something like that. However, it cannot do that with fructose very easy. So what it has to do is stop and convert fructose into a format for storage. And that is where we get the the deadlock or the lockdown on the liver, and then the liver has to convert that into fats. The liver does not take any challenges with this, and this now causes output of high triglycerides, and this is where the VLDL comes around. That's the very dense lipoproteins transporter to maybe move the triglycerides or something like that. But this is where we have seen a high increase in VLDL, which is associated with your plaquing and your arteriosclerosis. Thank you for viewing today, and we will come back to you in another broadcast one day again. Thank you for viewing. When I just start, I echo.